Recently, I started an online relationship and met him in the virtual world, an online dating partner who caught my heart. We agreed that we would not exchange any photos before we actually met, and that we would only perceive each other's existence by text and voice. This way of emotional communication, which retains a sense of mystery, adds a unique charm to our relationship. Still, I plan to meet him when I have time in the future, and I want to see what he looks like. What if it's a big handsome guy? His voice is very good. Shouldn't his appearance be bad? My vision of him is always optimistic and full of anticipation. He is my exit from my busy work, and I have been fantasizing about what kind of person the other person is in the middle of countless nights of overtime. He should be a very gentle and considerate person, right? Whenever I was tired, I would confide in him, and he would always listen patiently to me and join me in scolding the ruthless boss. Recently, my company had an important project in place, and the whole group was immersed in a tense and hectic atmosphere. My colleagues and I started working overtime day and night again, doing our best to make the project a success. Finally, with the joint efforts of everyone, the project was successfully completed. I breathed a sigh of relief and enjoyed a moment of fishing at my workstation. I happened to be hungry, so I sent a message to my online dating partner and coquettishly asked him to buy me a small cake as a reward for me. Buy me a little cake now. You are the person who loves me the most in this world. However, in less than 5 minutes, the group gossip group suddenly exploded. It is said that when the president was in a meeting to cast the screen, a person with the note baby suddenly sent him a message and asked him for a small cake. I'm blindsided. God, it can't be such a coincidence, right? Could it be the one I asked my online dating partner to buy a small cake? Everyone in the group ran out to eat melons. Note, it's actually baby Chin. Mom, just the president's appearance of not approaching. I don't dare to think about it. I don't dare to think about it at all. And I also received a message from my online dating partner. Don't worry, baby, I'm just at work. I must be the one who loves you the most. I instantly felt my heart beat faster and my cheeks burned. Help! What the hell is going on? At this moment, it was as if my brain had suffered a brief outage. All sounds and colors were gone, leaving only blankness and confusion. However, in the midst of this boundless chaos, the silence was pierced by the sound of a message. I looked down and saw that it was the online dating partner who sent a red envelope, and the cover read, "Invite my favorite baby to eat a small cake." Then, he continued to send voice messages, and I clicked on it and listened to it in my ears, stunned in place, my heart beating like a drum. Baby, you didn't reply to the message in time during the meeting just now. Don't be angry with me, right? His voice was so close to me that it seemed to be pouring out warm breath against the side of my face, which made people blush. However, I quickly recovered and had deep doubts about his identity. Judging from the situation just now, he can't be the president of our company, right? I cautiously tested his profession, and he told me lightly that he was only self-employed, doing small businesses. I tried to get more information from his words, but he always avoided talking about it, so I couldn't know who he really was. Maybe it's just a coincidence. He is such a warm-hearted little angel. He will definitely not be a ruthless president who oppresses me and makes me work overtime every day. We officially agreed to meet in the future, and I was looking forward to it. Before that, I need to go home for the Chinese New Year and reunite with my family. When I got home and I accidentally mentioned my online date, my cousin and aunt sneered at me, thinking that the online date I was looking for must be a minor or ugly person who was afraid to meet anyone. Their words made me feel very uncomfortable, but I knew that I could not be influenced by their words. My relationship with my online dating partner is stable and pure, and although we haven't met yet, our hearts and minds have long been closely connected. I firmly believe that my online dating partner is definitely beautiful and kind, and he is a rare and good person in the world. What they say is absolutely slander, pure slander. Unexpectedly, at this moment, I received a gift for them to close their voices, a New Year's gift from my online dating partner. This person is so good to me. He really gives me a long face. When I opened the package and saw the carefully selected gift, I couldn't help but smile. It is a set of nutritional supplements suitable for the elderly and children. taking into account the physical needs of my parents and the growth needs of my little nephew. I used to want to buy it for my family, but this supplement is very popular and not easy to buy in the market. My mom and dad were overjoyed, and they developed a strong interest and affection for this young man, whom they had never met. They say that such a gift expresses a person's sincerity and kindness more than any words. Although this gift is not very expensive, it is very intimate. It is like a spring breeze, blowing away all the doubts in my family's hearts about my online dating partner. Our whole family felt the warmth and heart from him, and in this cold winter day, a warm current was quiet, too. It warmed my heart. His meticulous care and thoughtfulness have raised my family's impression of him to a new level. Amid the praise of the whole family, I left the scene contentedly and hid in my room alone. I turned on my phone and saw that the gossip group in the company exploded again. It turned out that it was his colleagues who were talking about the president, and he had been looking at some gifts lately, speculating whether the president really had them. The object of my crush. According to reliable information, the president has been looking at some gifts suitable for the elderly and children recently, and I am afraid that the president is really in the situation. Wow, who's so lucky? Envy the dead Tilda, the person who can make our president so attentive must be very beautiful. After brushing the group message, I couldn't help but have a question mark in my heart. Did the president also send nutritional products? It's amazing. Is he in some parallel world with my online dating? How can two completely different people often have such an inexplicable similarity? Could it be that they are the same person? Eventually, though, I dismissed the idea, because after a while, I remembered that some time ago the company was preparing a charity event aimed at caring for the disadvantaged in society. The reason why the president pays attention to gifts suitable for the elderly and children is because of the needs of work. Through thinking and judging, I feel that it is because I think too much and are too sensitive that I will connect two unrelated people together. They can't be the same person, and my online date is much warmer than a cold workaholic president. After brushing up the gossip, there was unfortunate news in the group that someone was angry. He would have to work overtime in a few days. I sighed helplessly and hurriedly packed up my things at work to prepare for returning to the company to work overtime. I had planned to spend quality time in a cafe with my never-before-seen online dating partner on a quiet afternoon, and now, I had to push this long-awaited meeting ahead of the damn work. On the second day, inside the cafe, the warm lighting creates a warm atmosphere. I pushed open the door and looked around, looking for the long-awaited figure. Suddenly, my eyes fell on a man sitting in a corner. He wears a crisp suit, has an extraordinary temperament, and is full of elite flavor. I can't help but wonder, is this the online dating partner I'm waiting for? I walked up to him, nervous and excited. As I approached, he looked up and gave a gentle smile. This young lady, may I ask who you are? When that familiar voice sounded, I was finally convinced that he was the one I was looking for. I'm Nina Fox, I said to him. He gave me a look of realization, and then told me that he was Leo Meg. Wait, he's too handsome, isn't he? Much more handsome than I thought, and the kind of handsome guy who looks a lot of gold. As if to see my shyness, he said to me in a mocking tone, "What, Nina Fox, don't recognize me?" As he spoke, he took out a delicate jewelry box, and continued, "I picked it 2 days ago, and I think you should be beautiful when you wear it." I opened the jewelry box, and a purple crystal necklace sparkled. "It's beautiful." I couldn't help but sigh. "Try, I'll help you." As he spoke, he stood up and walked behind me, leaning down slightly. His slender white fingers swept over the back of my neck, and I felt the touch of his fingertips rubbing over me, and my heart itched slightly. He put on my necklace and praised me, saying, "It's beautiful, it's eye-catching." "Thank you." His compliments made me a little embarrassed. He looked very rich, and I muttered to myself, "Oh, by the way, I forgot to buy you a present." I patted my head and said with a little annoyance, "It's okay, seeing you is the greatest gift." He chuckled, "Yes, this guy is quite good at talking. Also, the nutritional products you sent to my house a few days ago have been well received. I'll tell you the truth." "Yes, that's good. I'm worried that it won't be useful." He looked at me earnestly and said. The atmosphere gradually became light and cheerful. We talked very speculatively, and in the midst of talking and laughing, I felt very happy with him. as if the whole world was just the two of us. From work to life, from ideal to reality, we talked happily. In his words, I heard wisdom and experience, and I also felt love and warmth. We chatted for a long time, and I began to confide in him all kinds of dissatisfaction and helplessness at work as I usually do on the internet, and he listened patiently and gave some suggestions from time to time. But when I mentioned the name of the company, his face suddenly became dull for a moment. I noticed his strange appearance, and I couldn't help but feel uneasy. He doesn't have anything to do with our company, does he? Just as I was feeling uneasy, he regained his composure, still smiling gently, and nodded politely. It should have been that I thought too much, and I breathed a sigh of relief, and the doubts in my heart gradually dissipated. But it reminds me that I'm not developing too fast with him. Although we are obviously so intimate on the internet, I feel different when we actually meet. Although I have gradually felt that this online dating is not an illusory dream, but a real fate. But compared to the online love between each other, our face-to-face relationship is more like a meeting of netizens. Maybe we should take a step back and go with the flow. Thinking about it, I stood up and smiled, and held out my hand to him. He looked at me, a little puzzled, then shook my hand. I felt his firmness and strength, but I still spoke. It's nice to meet you. I think let's get along as friends first. What, you're going to, with me, break up? His eyes drooped, his eyelashes fluttering slightly. When he looked up again, I noticed that his eyes were red. I looked at his aggrieved appearance, and the ghost made my heart soften. Where did I have the heart to say that I wanted to break up with him? So, I said, don't break up, don't break up. I take back what I just said. You're still my baby. After returning to the company to work overtime, I was still immersed in the joy of meeting him. Although I am still busy at work, my mood has become lighter and happy. Little did I know that a storm was about to sweep over me. One afternoon, the sun shines through the office window and dapples onto the desk, and the air is filled with the faint smell of tea. However, this tranquil atmosphere was shattered by a sudden storm. My supervisor, a man who usually prides himself on authority, was standing in front of me with a flushed face, and there was an unstoppable arrogance in his eyes. He tried to throw the blame for a budget mistake on me, and it was obviously his own mistake, but he wanted me to bear the blame. I firmly rejected him and presented evidence that it was his mistakes that caused the damage. However, instead of relenting from this, he became angry and demanded more forcefully. He threatened me to leave the company if I didn't accept the charge. You'd better get to know each other and know what to do. His voice echoed through the office, shooting at me like a cold arrow. I was stunned, and the anger and grievances in my heart surged into my heart like a tide. I remembered the harassment he had harassed me, and the unbearable memories of the past came back to me. He thought that because I had no background, I could be bullied casually, but he was wrong. Although I don't have a strong backing, I have an unyielding heart. I can't back down, I can't compromise. After the director left, I called Leo Meg about it. On the other end of the phone, Leo Meg gently comforted me and said, don't worry, I know the top management of your company, and I will definitely help you find a way to solve this matter. What? He also knows the top of our company. Although I expected it, I was still surprised that this Leo Meg was really not a simple character. After talking to him on the phone, I felt a little more relieved, and started my own counterattack. With the mentality of breaking the kettle, I resolutely reported the certification materials directly to the head office. My supervisor scoffed at my actions, laughing at my whimsical ideas, believing that the head office would not care about the reports of a petty person like me. His eyes were full of disdain and contempt, and he said, you're just an insignificant little character. How can you shake the overall situation of the whole company? I didn't feel angry or frustrated in the face of the supervisor's taunts and questions. On the contrary, I was even more convinced of my convictions. I chose silence and responded to the doubts and ridicule with actions. In the process of waiting, I felt the length and heaviness of time. Every minute is very tormenting, full of anxiety and uneasiness, but I always firmly believe that my choice is the right one, and I believe that the head office will give me a fair answer. Finally, after a long wait, I ushered in a turning point. The group's top brass said the president would personally deal with the issue. When I heard the news, I felt an indescribable sense of excitement and joy in my heart. At that moment, I seemed to see the light of the victory of justice shining ahead. The arrival of the president shook the whole company. It is said that the president launched an investigation with a thunderous force, and not only verified the content of my report, but also decisively fired the supervisor involved. After the dust settled, I felt a deep sense of inner peace and contentment, although I experienced a lot of difficulties and setbacks along the way. In the end, I used my courage and wisdom to win. But I suddenly remembered that Leo Meg said that he knew the top management of our company. Could it be that it was not the evidence I reported that attracted the attention of the president? But he contacted the president to help me. With the question in my mind, I was going to ask Leo Meg for clarification. So, I went online with Leo Meg. You said before that you know the senior management of our company. Is that senior executive the president? After a while, Leo Meg replied, Nina Fox, I want to meet and talk to you about this in detail. Are you free on the weekend? Well, maybe he knows something inside. Maybe it's not as simple as it seems. I was a little confused, and then agreed to his offer. On weekends, I show up for my appointments on time. As a result, Leo Meg told me a fact that made me breathe. He didn't know the president of our company, because he was the president of our company himself. What a magical reality this is. My online dating partner is my boss. I call him baby every day and say good morning and good night to him. I send him pictures every day. I also complain to him about my boss. My body shook, and my pupils were terrified. We sat on the second floor of the restaurant, and the sun had set, casting an afterglow at the end of the city. I didn't want to appreciate it. Hugh, what is the probability of dying on the spot if you jump from the second floor and hit your head first? Probably won't die, but will definitely become vegetative. There was a black pepper steak in front of me, and the knife and fork in my hand were not moved. I glanced up and sneaked a glance at the other side. Leo Meg looked as usual and was elegantly cutting the steak into pieces. Is worthy of being the boss of the group, and this open-mindedness is not comparable to ordinary people. It's okay, Nina Fox, you can do it. Isn't it just online dating to your boss? It's not a big deal. The other party suddenly looked at me, and our eyes met. I'm like a balloon with a leak, and that bit of confidence disappears in an instant. Calm down, a hammer. Who can be calm? There was a slight knock in front of me, and I looked down just in time to see Leo Meg put the cut steak in front of me, replacing my untouched portion. Why don't you eat it? The fingers I put on my thigh unconsciously shrank, and I muffled, I'm not in the mood. The body is the capital of the revolution. Instead, the other party persuaded me, and his tone was gentle. You're too thin. Lose weight. Eat more. The restaurant is not an authentic Western restaurant, and I can't say anything about it when I see the man sitting upright and expertly cutting the steak on the plate. Coming here as Leo Meg is a grievance. We both drove, and didn't ask for wine. Leo Meg asked for a glass of water and ordered me a glass of milk. I said speechlessly, I'm past the time to grow my body. Then I saw the man seem to laugh and say, well, calcium. What to do? What to do next? Who can stand this? I don't know how I finish this meal, and nothing tastes when I chew it in my mouth. After settling the account, I went out and was blown by the night wind, and my mind was finally cleared up after being chaotic for most of the day. Leo Meg followed me, turning his head sideways, and I looked at him with my eyes down, and he suddenly reached out. I didn't know what he wanted, so I subconsciously closed my eyes. However, Leo Meg only helped me straighten my hair, which was blown by the night wind. My chest pounded, and I couldn't tell if it was tension or what. After a long day of mental construction, I finally mustered up the courage to speak. Leo Meg interrupted me gently, looking at people with eyes softer than the nightlight. What's next? Absolutely. According to the original plan, we went to the cinema opposite to watch a movie after dinner. The film is a newly released foreign science fiction film, with a compact plot and realistic special effects, so that boys and girls will not be bored. I booked an 8 o'clock ticket, but now it's no longer necessary. Leo Meg saw my hesitation, blinking his bright eyes and looking earnest. He was much taller than me, and his posture was as tall as a pine, and the man bent down slightly, and said, can you spend the night with me? The cinema is located in a busy area, and it is a weekend. and there is a lot of traffic. Looking at the long line in front of the automatic ticket machine, I stood numbly. Why is this the way things are going? Why am I being bewitched by him again? Why did they walk into the cinema side by side? I think back to that moment. Leo Meg's eyes are really beautiful, and the pupils reflect neon light, like a deep pool, and he accidentally fell into it. I silently spit on myself, and I easily fell for the beauty trick. Forget it. The two have been in love with each other online for so long. The phone vibrated in his pocket, and the letter showed Leo Meg. I couldn't help but shudder. When I see the name now, I feel reflexive. He messaged me and asked, Nina Fox, what's the drink? I looked sideways at the sales stand. The 1-meter-8 man in a suit and leather shoes, holding flowers in his hand, was very conspicuous in the crowd. I bought the package coupon. I'll pick it up later, I replied. The queue is too long. It's not cost-effective to line up twice. I'll buy it directly, and keep the coupon for the two of us to use next time. Next time, I complained silently in my heart. I let out a soft breath, and walked out of the line with my ticket. Leo Meg had just come out of the kiosk. He held an oversized glass of iced Coke in one hand, a bucket of popcorn in the other, and a bouquet of roses in the crook of his arm. Even with this hectic appearance, there was no embarrassment at all, so I hurried over and took the flowers and Coke. Flowers are for you. He hooked the corners of his mouth and whispered, it doesn't have to be so caring. However, what is more intimate, is that he ordered a couple's package, with a double straw on the top of the Coke, and the love shape below is eye-catching and eye-catching. It was a little while before we entered, so we found a place to sit down. The cinema was noisy. The hall was playing the theme song of a certain movie, and the silence of our corner was out of place in the bustle. Help me, watching a movie with the boss. What topics can break the silence? Online, etc. Quite urgent. On the big screen opposite me was the trailer for the movie we were going to see, and I clenched my fists and said stiffly, the special effects are realistic. It's 2 hours. Did this lead actor play Avatar? Leo Meg looked ahead and paused. No. That's Sam Worthington. On the screen, the camera is giving a close-up of the white actor. Me, I'm sorry, exposed my ignorance. Pretending to fail, I didn't dare to speak again. Silence put up a wall between us. I gave up on communication. There was a sudden chill on his face. I couldn't help but turn my head away. Leo Meg touched my face with the ice cola in his hand. He seemed to be in a good mood today, and he had a faint smile all the time. Please don't laugh. When you laugh, my blood pressure rises, my heart and pulse are disordered, and my chi and blood are unstable. And there was silence for a long time. A melodious young female voice broke the silence between us. The girl was wearing a beige autumn dress, with long hair scattered and slightly red cheeks, and her eyes stared intently at Leo Meg in front of her. I followed her gaze and looked to the side. The smile on Leo Meg's face was gone, the corners of his mouth drooping, cold and impersonal. The girl's heart jumped when he saw it, but she still mustered up the courage to speak. Excuse me, can I add a question? Leo Meg didn't rush to answer, but turned to look at me. Then he moved his gaze down halfway. I looked down and saw the pink roses lying quietly in my arms, bright and dripping. I turned and handed the rose over. Give it back to you. Leo Meg held the flower in his hand, and then said embarrassedly in the girl's confused eyes, I'm sorry. There is a lord. There is a lord. What is a lord? And who is your lord? You're my boss, aren't you? The girl looked at me, smiled awkwardly and said, I'm sorry. I didn't think you talked much just now, and I thought you didn't know each other. Before I could finish the blindfolding, I heard the man next to me say, well, she's my girlfriend. Slowly, I took a cool breath. She looked at Leo Meg and whispered, I wish you 100 years together. Leo Meg had a sincere smile on his lips. I also wish you to find the right person soon. The girl wanted to say something, but Leo Meg stood up. Our movie is about to start. Can you make trouble go down? The girl stood to the side in a daze, but saw the man stretch out his hand, and took me very naturally. Let's go. My whole palm was gripped, and I felt my heart being tugged at as well. It didn't take long to get to the ticket gate. I had an iced Coke in my hand, popcorn in my arm, and my right hand was held tightly in my hand, and I couldn't get out of it. The ticket is still in my pocket. President. Leo Meg looked back at me. Call me by name. My heart was pounding, and I thought for a long time before I shouted, Leo Meg, I want to get a ticket. Leo Meg didn't say anything good or bad about this title, and he seemed to realize my inconvenience at this moment, and let go of his hand. The palm of his hand touched the slightly cool air, and he couldn't help but curl up. I deliberately chose a good position in the middle, where the line of sight is wide, and you don't have to look up. I put the Coke into the groove in the middle armrest, and when I looked up, Leo Meg was wiping my 3D lenses with an alcohol swab. I'll do it myself. Leo Meg didn't give it to me, and handed it over after carefully wiping it. A gentleman makes the heart tremble. I took it and rested it on the bridge of my nose, blurring my vision. Why hasn't the movie started yet? And why is the ad so long? Why do you still put the trailer again? Can I complain? The cell phone in his trouser pocket rang, and it was a call for a savior. I can't wait to take it out and pretend I'm busy. This way, you don't have to talk to the man next to you. Look down. Leo Meg, don't be afraid of me. You can't hide from it. I savored those words. It tasted a whispered and pleading taste. My heart beat hard, as if I had been poked in some soft spot, and my heart softened in an instant. Am I acting so obviously? I haven't replied to this message, and I really don't know how to say it. The movie started very quickly, and I forced myself into the groove. Fortunately, the content is really exciting. The protagonist and the villain fight wits and courage, and when the explosion is too realistic, I also nervously grab the handrail. It's not cold to the touch. The material of the special suit is a little slippery, and the feel under the fabric is hard and firm, and I instantly know what I am grabbing. Leo Meg's arm rests on the armrest. Sure enough, the man next to him looked over and asked softly, "Hey?" I felt like I was burned, and my hand immediately retracted. I'm sorry. Scared. It's not. I was taken aback by the special effects, which was a bit embarrassing to say, so I made a random excuse. I want to get Coke. As soon as the words fell, the big Coke was handed to him. I wasn't actually thirsty, but I took it anyway, and took a sip from a random straw. I looked over and saw Leo Meg looking at me, with a somewhat complicated expression. He couldn't help but laugh. That straw. I just used it. I lowered my head and slowly spit out the tube, my face burning as if I had touched something terrible. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. Leo Meg took the tube out and held it in his hand and said, "Drink it." I asked stupidly, "Aren't you drinking? I'm not thirsty." Oh. After nothing happened, Leo Meg seemed to be immersed in the plot of the movie. Didn't discuss the plot quietly with me, and didn't turn his gaze. On the contrary, I looked to the side from time to time, and it was more unbearable. By the end of the movie, it was past 10 o'clock. Out of the cinema, the heat on me went down a lot. Today is too magical. I have long lost any beautiful thoughts, and I just want to go home at this time. The night was a little cool, and my mind was in 1,000 turns. Leo Meg stood in front of me, smiled and asked, "Would you like to have a late-night snack?" I pursed my lower lip. No. Uncomfortable. Leo Meg looked at my face, and wanted to touch me with his palm, but I turned my head sideways and avoided it. There was a moment of silence in the air. Leo Meg lowered his hand, and slipped into his suit pants. Leo Meg. My throat was dry when I spoke, and I stood facing him, but I didn't dare to look at him. My heart felt like it was being struck with a small hammer, and I mustered up the courage to say, what I had thought about 1,000 times, "Leo Meg, that's it. After you tell me the truth, I'm starting to think that I'm able to take down the director because of you, and I'm getting into some doubts about myself." Leo Meg listened quietly, not moving or speaking. I took a deep breath and said it in one go. "So I think there are a lot of misunderstandings and problems between us. I think we need to rethink and look at our relationship well." I met those dark eyes, and I was dumbfounded for a moment. I know what Leo Meg thinks about me, but I don't know much about it. I'm not stupid, but I'm not smart enough. What does Leo Meg like about me? When I complain about him in Weshit every day, he must want to strangle me to death. I'd rather believe that he's taking revenge on me. Just seeing Leo Meg's expression, I don't know why, I also felt a little sad. Leo Meg nodded. "I see." I hummed, wondering if I should say something nice, when I felt my head held in place by a large hand. Before he could react, A warm sensation suddenly touched his lips, and the strong breath of the man. Leo Meg kissed me when I was defenseless. At this time, the malls have closed one after another, but people are still coming out. Those people are watching us. My first reaction was not nervousness, but shyness. I couldn't think in my head. I was only stunned. I've just drunk a lot of ice coke, and my lips are cold, and my lips are soft and hot. I don't have to look in the mirror. I know what color my face is now. His cheeks were so hot that they were about to explode. A brief kiss. Leo Meg only lingered on my lips for a moment, and didn't make any other unusual moves. As I withdrew, air poured into my nose and I coughed violently. Before I could question him, I heard the man say, "Nina Fox, I'm telling you that it's actually my assistant, who found out that your report letter is very detailed, and very organized." He then went on to say solemnly, "We must not allow such black sheep to exist." Leo Meg's words were resounding. Is that so? I'm still a little blind, still immersed in the kiss just now, and I don't have time to think seriously. I said goodbye to him in a hurry, and returned home with mixed feelings. When I got home, I took a hot shower, and the exhaustion didn't ease any longer. Lying in bed, no sleep, my mind tossing and turning is, what happened today? I met Leo Meg. Leo Meg is the president of our company. We ate together and watched a movie together. Leo Meg kissed me. I reached out and touched my lip. Not to mention, Leo Meg's lips are strangely soft, and there is a faint, unknown fragrance, and I don't know what to wear. I can ask next time. Yes. What do you ask? How can I be so easily swayed by Leo Meg? I'm going to have insomnia again tonight. Not only did I not sleep well that night, but I woke up the next day with a fever. Last night, I was so excited that I forgot to close the sliding door of the balcony. When I woke up in the morning, I covered my forehead, and my tentacles were hot. Dragging his body to find an electronic thermometer, a measure, 38.5 degrees. Fortunately, I habitually prepared common medicines at home, and after taking fever-reducing medicines, I asked for leave from the personnel department. I closed the balcony door, picked up the quilt and put it back on my body, and I lay back on the covers. My head was dizzy and heavy. I couldn't sleep when I closed my eyes, so I just lay down and looked at my phone. The fever medicine came up, and I couldn't help but yawn. Was about to lock the phone, and several red envelopes suddenly popped up on the chat interface. Leo Meg, wishing you prosperity. Good luck. Then there were 2 messages in a row. Didn't go to work? Uncomfortable. Taken on leave. Me, HMM. A little fever. Leo Meg, have you taken your medicine? Me, I ate and wanted to sleep. After saying this, I couldn't help but yawn and gradually lost consciousness. I slept for a while and woke up in the fog to hear the doorbell ringing. I sucked in my slippers and clicked out. Since he was not fully awake, he did not react when he saw Leo Meg. When he opened the door, he raised his eyes, looked at the confused me in front of him, and reached out and touched my forehead. Is the fever gone? His palms were warm and hot, and I couldn't tell if I was having a fever, or the temperature of his palms. Well, a lot of withdrawals. I kept my voice steady. What are you doing here? Leo Meg raised his hands and carried 2 bags of things. A bag of ingredients, a bag of fresh fruit. I was almost stunned when I heard him say, "Come and cook for the sick." I really don't know if I'm sick or whatever. My chest is so hot. I didn't expect him to cook himself. Lunch was beef stew, scrambled eggs with tomatoes, greens, and a bowl of rice. Looking at my frowning brow, Leo Meg asked, "What's wrong?" I struggled to speak. "I'm thinking, why is there just a bowl of rice, and there's no one in the pot?" Leo Meg replied, "And I wondered, then you won't eat it? I'll put the rest in an insulated box, and you can eat it at night." I blurted out, "Aren't you coming at night?" Nina Fox, what are you asking? You have to be mentally ill to ask this question. The man laughed on his face. "Can I understand that you are inviting me?" After a while, I said sullenly, "Listen to you." Leo Meg rolled his Adam's apple and repeated, "Listen to me." The corners of his mouth didn't curvature, but his eyes were frighteningly bright. My tone was stiff, but sincere. HMM. Leo Meg, I'll start with a question. You ask, do you want to reconsider our relationship? Yes. I was like I was hooked. No. Nina Fox. Leo Meg's tone was serious. Do you know what that means? What do you mean? I understand. And I don't understand. But I knew that the moment I opened the door and saw Leo Meg, I was really happy. Before I could reply, Leo Meg picked me up and gently placed me on the couch. He bent over and looked at me. I met his gaze, and I never felt so pretentious. Before I could continue to think about it, Leo Meg suddenly lowered his head, breathed close. I seemed to feel the temperature of his lips. Reacting to this, I turned my head sideways and avoided it, turned my face into the sofa, and explained in a hoarse voice, "If you're sick, don't infect you." Then a familiar chuckle was heard, and then he hugged him. Leo Meg leaned half of his body against me and whispered in my ear, meaning, "Can you save it for next time?" I wanted to shrink back into the couch again, but I held back. "If you're an adult, don't hide." Finally I closed my eyes, nodded my head, and said, "Yes, well, thanks to the internet. The internet is a thread." The end.